I think there's a resurgence of anti-Semitism because at this point in time, Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural. And I think we're going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolithic societies that they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. But without that leading role and without that transformation, Europe will not survive.
Yeah, well, Europe doesn't seem to be surviving very well at the moment as it is. Well, it's surviving as a landmass, but the entire cultures across Europe are being wiped out through mass migration. You know, and there's nothing wrong with moving to another country. There's nothing wrong with it at all. But when it's done in vast amounts and they bring that culture with them, and they're bringing with them the chips they've got on their shoulders from all of these different racial tensions and religious tensions that they've had in their own areas, and they're bringing that to your own countries, well, then it does become a problem. You know, if you move to Mexico, you try to assimilate and fit in as a Mexican. If you move to Australia, you do the same thing. If you move to China, you do the same thing. You do that because you admire the culture, you like the country, and you like the people, and you want to become one of them. That should be a reason to immigrate, not to take your culture there and to undermine that country and turn it into your own. You know, it's a form of silent invasion, the great replacement that so many people have talked about. But, you know, I'm getting a little bit off topic here. I was going somewhere with all of that. But that's right. Slavery, the whole concept that the blacks were brought there as slaves, like I said, there's no evidence to support that. There's a great YouTube channel, I think it's probably still there, I haven't looked at it for a while, by a guy called Dane Calloway, who actually went through the whole thing. He's a black man, and he went through the whole thing and said, hey, no, we weren't brought here as slaves, we were actually here before all that. They were through Europe. It was multicultural all over the place, because it was one culture, it was one society. Then modern history came along, you know, Scalian history, Scaligerian history. Scaliger was the guy, sorry, yeah. Scaligerian history came along, by the Vatican of course, and they taught us all this bullshit, created the Dark Ages, blah, blah, blah. If you really start looking into slavery, you'll find that some of the worst slavery that ever occurred was white slavery in the form of the slavery of the Irish people, carried out generally by the British. And this was horrendous, folks. It went on for quite a while, and there's a lot of detailed reports of this that you can find on the internet as well. Actually, I might even do a show on it. I might even dedicate almost an entire show to some of the stuff that's happened to the Irish people in the form of Irish slavery, the potato famine, how many of them were simply murdered by the British government by starvation. They stole all their food. We will see it in our history recorded as the potato famine. The potato famine is a really lame label for it. It wasn't a potato famine. What it was a deliberate act of genocide against the Irish people, or democide against the Irish people. And thousands upon thousands, if not millions of people suffered through the potato famine, which had nothing to do with potatoes and everything to do with the British stealing the food. And before that, they were stealing the people, selling them into slavery. It's just, it's horrendous, folks, what's happened to the Irish people and what's happening to them now. The country is literally being overrun with